Well, it's been a little bit since we had any updates on The Flash, and over the last day or so, we've had some pretty interesting news involving Ezra Miller, as well as rumored reshoots that could be helping align this franchise with the future of the DCU. Let's take a couple minutes to break down all the Flash news, talk about what's going on, and why this is likely good news for Ezra Miller. Now, before we do that though, make sure you hit this like and subscribe button and ring the bell for all the updates. We want to be your place for all the DC and Marvel news, but we want to bring it to you truthfully and transparently, so you are really in the know. Well, as many of you know, the whole production of The Flash has been somewhat of a mess from day one. It was announced in that initial slate of DC movies back in the Zack Snyder days, and after many years of pre-production, the movie finally got made only to see Ezra Miller really crash into a wall and run into all kinds of legal trouble. Now, one of those bits of legal trouble was potential felony burglary, which could carry 25 years. This stems from an event from last October when we learned that Ezra Miller had pled not guilty to that burglary charge. But now it appears he has completely rethought the situation and probably made a pretty good move given he's trying to win back over Warner Bros. Discovery. Now, this report comes via Deadline, and what they are saying is Ezra Miller has now pled guilty to a lesser charge of trespassing. This would result in a $500 fine and the actor being placed on probation. But it does mean the burglary and petty larceny charges will be dropped. He was charged with felony burglary up in Vermont after he allegedly stole a couple bottles of liquor from one of his neighbors, which seems like a pretty small deal given some of the other stuff that's happened over the past year, but was a burglary charge and could have resulted in major trouble. Now, like many of his other legal problems, this seems to be getting resolved, and quite honestly, this is probably pretty good news for Ezra Miller and a potential future as the Flash. As many of you know, Ezra's behavior over the last year has caused a lot of headaches for Warner Bros. Discovery, and appeared to put his status as the Flash in complete jeopardy. He did release a statement a couple of months ago apologizing for his actions and promising to undergo treatment for his mental health issues, but at that time, many people really didn't know what this meant. The fact that he's pled guilty to these charges and it's worked out the way it is, honestly probably looks really good to Warner Bros. Discovery in this sort of path of redemption Miller is on. Now, quite honestly, not a lot of people are expecting Ezra to return to the role after this movie, but given how Flashpoint and Flashpoint events work in DC Comics, Miller is one of those castings that could be part of the new DCU. Multiple reports recently seem to indicate DC co-heads James Gunn and Peter Safran have not made a decision yet, and quite honestly, I can't imagine they would risk such a PR disaster, but at the end of the day, money talks, and we do know Warner Bros. Is very pleased with the test screenings, so they really are getting behind this film. What Warner Bros. Discovery ultimately decides, we really still have no idea, but Ezra Miller taking accountability, getting mental health help, and pleading guilty to some of these legal issues, resolving them as quietly as possible, really is all he can do at this point in hopes to save his time as Barry Allen in the DC universe. It's probably the smartest move for the actor, and like I said, it's good to see him getting treatment and facing down all of these problems that he created over the last year. Now, the film is currently set to release on June the 16th, but there was another interesting story that hasn't been confirmed by any trades or Warner Brothers, but does make a lot of sense. Now, there have been multiple reports that the film is going to undergo some reshoots later this month, and I'm sure this will leave a lot of people wondering what's going on. Apparently, these are very minor reshoots, and not a full recasting of Miller or anything at that level. The report says these are likely minor pickup shots and nothing of serious event. But if you're looking at all this and the timing of James Gunn's upcoming 10-year plan for the DCU, it is something that makes you say, Many of us have been wondering how James Gunn is going to handle this sort of reboot coming for DC movies, and it's clearly going to spawn out of The Flash. I do suspect whatever these reshoots are, they are likely tweaking some of the aspects of this movie to align with the plan that Gunn and Safran have been developing over the last month or two. They are actually pretty darn fortunate that this movie is coming out and gives them the ability to make these tweaks. This means Gunn and Safran can still keep the established DC history of movies, but still move their universe into a new stage and basically give it a new 52 style reboot, resetting the universe but not destroying the status quo. Now, Gunn is set to release some of his 10-year plan any day now. He said we'd get to see it in January, and we're about at that halfway mark, so I'm expecting it any day. As for Ezra Miller, I am happy to see the guy start to get the help that he clearly needed. I really don't know if it's too little too late given the seriousness of some of the charges. Many fans are really not too keen on forgiving the guy, and considering many Hollywood actors and actresses have been completely exiled from franchises for doing way less, I do find it pretty interesting that Warner Bros. Discovery or DC Studios is even remotely considering keeping him as the Flash. This quite honestly might be a little bit of a play, just getting that movie in the theaters and avoiding more negative press. If news was released that Ezra was definitely being replaced in the DCU, it could drive some people away from the box office. But you have to also consider the fact that we know many of these characters are being recast, and that effect might ultimately impact their releases for all of next year. The Flash itself looks pretty good, and we are on the countdown to a trailer at the Super Bowl. The test screenings are supposed to be great, so I do think fans have something to look forward to. It really would be a shame if this movie turns out to be the best one in the whole line of DCEU movies, only to close that universe out, leading us into whatever James Gunn has planned. Obviously, The Flash is a big part of anything DC does on the big screen, so this movie is going to be important. Where it fits ultimately in the grander scheme, we're going to have to wait and see. Hopefully Ezra stays out of trouble and this is a smooth transition.